The fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson is using his platform, Star Talk, pretty big deal. He posted this just a day ago. The last piece of the puzzle is, can we quantize gravity? Can we somehow find a way to sense the atom derived purely from gravity, a graviton? They never found a graviton yet. That's the thing. I know y'all saw that man head shaking.
Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to science agencies. What's up with that? Consider a couple of things. We're trying to save money. Who doesn't want to save money? The Department of Government Efficiency is attempting that, run by the richest person in the world, who, as of today or last week, is valued at $330 billion. I want you to understand how much money that is. So, if you take $330 billion and represent it by $100 bills, if you lay them end to end, how far will it go? It will go around the Earth 3 times.
All right, y'all. So right now he's getting into like the miscellaneous facts about Elon's wealth. But he's gonna connect this into how they're planning on cutting NASA's budget and why it's extremely bad for like the future of America. And I believe it's terrible. I don't believe it should happen.
Then with what's left over, you can sort of tape them together as a kind of a ribbon and ascend into the sky and into space and reach the moon. By then you would have used up all the $100 bills that comprise $330 billion. Bit of information. Another bit of information. If you fired all 3 million government employees, put them out of work, how much would you save? You can do the numbers on this. You would save 4.3% of the federal budget. That's all. So the government is spending money on something else that represents the bulk of what the federal budget is. Ask a bigger question. If you go and give these trims to all of these agencies, by the way, chainsaws are not good at trims. They're like for cutting down the middle. But anyhow, you give like a haircut. You cut one part of an agency here, you trim it there, nip tuck there, and then you say, we saved millions of dollars. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. So to cherry pick the bits and pieces of one agency and another on the grounds that that's somehow gonna transform how the government operates, I think is a little short-sighted. A lot short-sighted. NASA, their plans to cut half of its science budget, including the removal of the Office of the Chief Scientist. The Chief Scientist is the person who offers a vision for which way the science directorate is going to go. There's astrophysics, there's planetary science, you have earth science, there's heliophysics, understanding the sun and space weather. When the sun has an explosion, you kind of want to know about that. High energy streams of particles head towards Earth and could take out our satellites, upon which so much of our modern civilization depends. There's also planetary exploration, and then there's the search for life. All of that is in the Science Mission Directorate. So you want to cut that to save money? How much money is that? How much is the total NASA budget compared to your tax dollar? It is less than 0.4% of your tax dollar. If I cut off 0.4% from the width of this dollar, it doesn't even get into the paint. And you want to trim NASA to save federal expenditures?
That's how much NASA is getting. I finally became a Stanford grad on aeronautical engineering, obtained my CTC pilot license, joining as an Airbus 380 pilot next week. Yo, I wish I had a soundboard. Congratulations, bro. That's outstanding, bro. Like I'm impressed, bro. That is. And I pray that keeps on, like, you keep striving for that, bro. Like, you keep doing your thing and you be the best one at what you do, bro. Like, real shit. I'm proud of you, bro.
Really? Is that what's happening there? Now, I'm a scientist. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe. Sure. I'll give you that. However, let's go back in time. I have a document here Science, the Endless Frontier. Report to the President on a program for post-war scientific research
what's up,
by
Vincenzo.
Vannevar Bush, Director of the Office of Science Research and Development, a brand new agency of the government that saw what role science played in our health, our wealth, and our security. And this document, dated from the late 1940s, established the science agenda of the United States. This was the original
Stanford,
thinking
that's a
that led to the
great-ass-
formation
bro, that's
of the
a great
National
achievement.
Science Foundation. 10 years later, Russia, Soviet Union, launches Sputnik. Within 12 months, we create NASA in response to that. Science is not just something scientists do in the back lab. Science is foundational to our health, our wealth, our security. No, you don't see it every day because it happens in labs with nameless scientists who publish papers that only other fellow scientists recognize and can understand. But over the
I'm gonna cut off a little bit and say something too. The fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson is using his platform, Star Talk, to discuss this issue, it's a pretty big deal. Like, he only posted this just a day ago. This is a pretty big deal, bro. Neil is very intelligent. He would not make this video for no reason.
the years, those discoveries work their way, as they always do, into our lives. We are in the centennial decade of the 1920s of the development and discoveries of quantum physics. If you were around back then, what would you be saying? Oh, we don't need this. These are just atoms. No, who cares about atoms? I just care about
Not lying.
solid things that I can see and recognize and
Just keep that in mind with this budget cut that they talking about. All this progression that we're making on quantum physics and stuff, at least as America, boom, wiped. We've even got people making quantum computers. You don't even understand what a quantum computer fucking does, probably. They're planning on cutting that shit out. And the thing is, the scientists, they're not gonna stop just because America wants to cut the budget. They're gonna simply carry on in whichever way they can, if it's for America or not. You hear me? So keep that in mind.
understand. Do you realize there is no creation, storage, or retrieval of information without an exploitation of the quantum? There is no IT information without an exploitation of the quantum. There is no IT revolution without the quantum, the foundations of our information technology culture. These are scientists working on a frontier in the roaring 20s when no one else is caring about it, but you had people who did. And you know where a lot of that research happens? By scientists in research universities. Not in the R&D labs of
Quantum
corporations,
computing is very
because they
dangerous.
have to make a
Government knows
buck
it.
at the end of the day. That R&D,
It's dangerous because with the quantum, we can get closer to the fabric of life, like the fabric of existence and everything, you know? We've pretty much almost have the whole quantum mechanics and quantum physics figured out. The only thing that, the one piece of the puzzle that we're missing, quantum physicists believes that there's a particle, a quark, that's responsible for gravity. However, they haven't found an atom that derives solely and purely from gravity, you know, which enhances Einstein's theory of relativity that there isn't gravity, it's just space moving forward through time. So, yeah, Gov doesn't like AI taking jobs, less tests. Yeah, bro, dead ass. So, but just think about that though. That's how close we are to having reality figured out on the quantum level. We pretty much know what life is made and comprised from. Just not really how, but we know what, right? The last piece of the puzzle is, can we quantize gravity? Can we somehow find a way to sense an atom derived purely from gravity, a graviton? They never found a graviton yet. That's the thing.
has to have a sight line that reaches to a bottom line, to an ROI, a return on that investment. Whereas scientists working for the pure joy of discovery on the frontier of their fields, there's no expectation that their discovery in that moment is going to make.
Bro, you heard U.S. deporting now U.S. citizens to El Salvador. Bro, it's been a lot of shit going on. Like a whole lot. And our president is just popping out with legislatures, and he's just popping out with these things at light speed. And if you want to keep up, that's on you. But if you're not, boom, he's just popping them out. Yeah, bro. He's deporting Mexicans to Mexico. He's deporting Jamaicans to Jamaica, Cubans to Cuba. You know what I mean? He's doing that.
Make money for anybody. That happens
man.
later. These are the foundations of what would become civilization. And they understood that coming out of the Second World War. And to the extent that we do not understand that today, fine. That's what you want. Cut the NASA budget. You do that, we recede. Not just for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, for the EPA, Environmental Protection.
Hey, man. He's serious. I know y'all saw that man head shaking.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, for the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. 3 organizations, NASA, NOAA, and the EPA, all signed into existence by Republican presidents, I might add. NASA by Dwight Eisenhower in 1958, NOAA and the Environmental Protection Agency is 1970. Signed into existence by President Richard Nixon. Yeah, we could just get rid of it all, I suppose, and you'd save a little bit of money. At what cost? We would cede leadership in these
Everybody
domains
know that.
To other countries who, based on my read, care more about science than we currently do. That should worry any scientist, of course, but it should especially worry the public, because innovations in science and technology are the engines of tomorrow's economy. One thing that this country, the United States of America, has been really good at my entire lifetime is leading the world in science. NASA's the envy of the world, one of the shining jewels in the crown of what it is to be American, the discoveries of NASA. And to go into that less than 0.4% cut on the grounds that that's going to make some difference to this country.
Approximately.
To our budget woes? I don't understand that. 2 generations now, when we are trailing in the world on every important scientific advance that became foundational to the future health, wealth, and securities of other countries, we will look around and say, oh my gosh, the boat left without us. We were complacent. We reduced our investments when we should have been increasing them, just as Vannevar Bush described in this document from what is now 80 years ago. They understood, so that we Americans can reap the benefits of the health, the wealth, and the security that fundamental investments in science delivers. Without that, the rest of the world will pass us by, and we'll spend an entire generation trying to catch up when it turns around and bites us in the ass when we realize that we are trailing the world instead of leading it in every way that has mattered to 20th century America. And that's what's up with that.
Continues to go on like that, right? We're fucked, right? Because, all right, my bias is space exploration, right? I like astronomy and astrophysics. Look at my tattoos, bro. Like, I literally, I got fucking Saturn right here, bro. I love astronomy and astrophysics, bro. Fuck that. Weapons, atom bombs, hydrogen nukes, AI, drones. Cutting NASA is essentially cutting out research. One of the leading things of research. And even then, NASA does not have a big enough budget to even do this on a level that it would really matter us some. it all matters, right? Millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. None of us probably have never seen that, but fuck, that shit is crazy, bro. That shit is crazy, bro.